3 days passed after that unforgettable evening. The revelation had spread quietly but powerfully through their social circle. What once was gossip about the poor mother turned into whispers of admiration and disbelief. But I didn't care about any of that. I hadn't done it for validation. I had done it for peace. And peace for the first time in years felt within reach. That Wednesday afternoon, while I was preparing tea, the doorbell rang. A soft chime, hesitant, unsure. Somehow I already knew who it was. When I opened the door, there stood Priya. No makeup, no designer clothes, just a simple ponytail and tired eyes. She looked younger, smaller, more real. "May I come in?" she asked softly. I nodded and stepped aside. "Of course." She entered, glancing around my modest living room. The simple furniture, the old photographs, the quiet charm of a home built with love, not money. "Please sit," I said. She hesitated before speaking. "I don't know where to start." "Start where your heart tells you to," I replied. Priya took a deep breath. "I came to apologize, but not just with words. I came because I need to understand. I need to change." I said nothing, just listened. "My parents," she began, her voice trembling. "They weren't always like this. They grew up poor, very poor. No electricity, no running water, barely enough food. They worked day and night, saving every rupee, dreaming of a life where they'd never have to struggle again." Her eyes filled with tears. When they finally escaped that poverty, they became obsessed with never going back. Money became safety. Control became love. Success became the only language they knew. I nodded. It's understandable. Pain can turn into fear, and fear can disguise itself as pride. Priya looked up at me. "But it doesn't excuse how they treated you, or how I stayed silent. I saw their disrespect, I heard their words, but I did nothing. Because that's what I've done my whole life, stayed silent to keep the peace." Her voice cracked. "But that night when you spoke, when you revealed the truth, it was like you broke something inside me. The lie I had been living. The belief that money defines worth." She wiped her tears. I realized how small we had become. Hiding behind things, forgetting people. I placed my hand gently on hers. "Sometimes we must lose our illusions to find ourselves." She smiled faintly through her tears. "You showed me that being rich isn't about having more. It's about needing less. About having peace, respect, and authenticity. I never saw that before." I took a slow sip of tea before replying. "I didn't expose the truth to embarrass your parents. I did it to protect my son, to protect myself. To remind them that humility isn't weakness. It's strength." "I know," she said softly. "And I'm grateful. You saved me from becoming them. From teaching my future children the same empty values." She paused, looking at her hands. "They haven't spoken to me since that night. My mother says I betrayed them. My father threatened to cut me off financially. And how do you feel about that?" I asked. Her eyes steadied. "For the first time in my life, free." I smiled. "Then you've already started healing." Priya nodded slowly. "Marcus and I talked. We've decided to set boundaries. We told them they're welcome in our lives, but only if they come with respect, not control." "That's a brave decision," I said. "They didn't take it well," she admitted. "My father said, 'Without us, you are nothing.' But I realized something. If love comes with conditions, it's not love. It's a transaction." Silence filled the room. Not heavy but peaceful. After a moment she looked up again. "Mother-in-law, I want to learn from you. Teach me how to live differently, with dignity, simplicity, and peace. You don't chase approval, you don't fear judgment. I want that strength." I smiled gently. "That strength comes from living, falling, getting back up. I can share my lessons, but you must walk your own path. Don't try to change everything at once. Start small." She leaned forward, listening. "Before you buy something," I said, "ask yourself, is this for me or to impress others? Before you react, ask, will this bring peace or only noise? Live by that, and you'll find freedom." Priya nodded, absorbing every word. "And my parents?" she asked softly. "Will they ever change?" I looked at her honestly. Change comes only when you admit something's wrong. And they still believe they're right. So maybe not. But that's not your burden to carry. You can break the cycle. She wiped her tears again and smiled weakly. "I will. For me, for Marcus, and for our future children. I promise. I placed my hand on hers once more. Then start by forgiving. Not for them but for yourself. Let go and live lighter. She exhaled deeply, as if releasing years of pain. Thank you, she whispered. For your patience. For your honesty. For not giving up on me. There's nothing to thank, I said softly. Just promise me one thing: when you have children, teach them to value people, not things. To measure hearts, not wallets. I promise, she said firmly. We hugged. A long, genuine embrace. No masks, no ego, no judgment. Just two women meeting halfway between guilt and grace. When she finally left, the apartment felt quiet again. But it was a good quiet, the kind that comes after closure. I sat by the window watching the orange sunset fade into purple. My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. Mom, Priya told me everything. Thank you for giving her a chance. I love you more than words can say. I smiled, typing back simply. I love you too, my son. Always. Outside, the evening sky painted itself in calm colors, as if the universe itself was at peace. And in that stillness, I understood something deeper than ever before. Real wealth isn't about possessions. It's about peace, the kind that doesn't need to be seen, only felt. That evening after Priya left, the house felt unusually calm. I sat on the sofa, the soft hum of the ceiling fan blending with the quiet rhythm of my thoughts. For the first time in a long while, everything felt still, not empty but peaceful. I looked around my modest apartment, the worn sofa that had seen countless evenings of laughter, the faded curtains that danced gently with the evening breeze, and the old clock ticking softly on the wall. Everything was simple, but everything was mine. Real. Honest. I smiled to myself. Once upon a time, I used to think happiness came from building an empire, from security, from success. My late husband and I had worked day and night for years to create something meaningful. Not to flaunt, but to build a future for our son. But after losing him, I realized something that took years to understand. Peace doesn't come from what you have. Comes from what you no longer need. My phone buzzed softly on the table. A message from Marcus. Mom, Simone told me about your talk. Thank you. For being you. I stared at the message for a long moment. The love in his words was quiet but powerful, and I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes. I typed a short reply. I love you too, my son. Always. I placed the phone aside and walked toward the window. The sky outside was painted in soft pink and gold, the last light of the day fading gently into night. I closed my eyes and let the cool breeze touch my face. For the first time I felt light, as if all the pretense, all the misunderstandings, all the hidden pain had finally dissolved into the air. Then a thought crossed my mind. People like Veronica and Franklin, Priya's parents, would probably never understand this feeling. They would continue living behind the glittering walls of their luxury homes, counting their wealth, comparing their success, and convincing themselves that control equals power. But deep down I knew the truth. They were prisoners, trapped not by poverty but by fear. Fear of losing control, fear of not being enough, fear of the emptiness that wealth could never fill. I whispered softly, may they find peace one day. I sat back down, remembering the look on Priya's face earlier that day, that moment of realization, the spark of awakening. That was the true victory. Not revenge, not pride, but transformation. If one person could see through the illusion, then maybe it was all worth it. I opened my diary, the same one I had written in since my husband's passing, and began to write. Life has shown me that dignity is the most beautiful form of wealth. You can lose everything, your money, your home, your position, but if you keep your integrity, you remain rich. People chase luxury to fill the emptiness inside them, but true fulfillment is found in silence, in kindness, in self-respect. The world measures success by how high you rise. I measure it by how gracefully you stand when everything falls. I closed the diary and smiled. Just then, there was another message from Marcus. Mom, Simone and I are coming over this weekend. She wants to cook for you. My heart warmed instantly. That simple gesture meant more than any gift money could buy. It wasn't about reconciliation, it was about connection. When the weekend arrived, I opened the door to see Marcus carrying groceries and Simone holding flowers. She hugged me first, a warm, genuine hug. There was no tension this time, no fear, no guilt. Just love. I brought your favorite tea leaves, Simone said shyly. I remembered you mentioned them once. I smiled. You remembered. That's enough. We spent the day cooking together, laughing, talking about small things, life, work, memories. It felt natural, easy, like a family rediscovering itself. At one point, Simone looked around and said softly, "You know, this home feels different, peaceful. I never noticed that before." I smiled. That's because there's no competition here. Only love. Marcus nodded. And that's exactly what I want for our home too. We sat down for dinner, a simple meal of rice, lentils, and vegetables, but it tasted better than any expensive feast. Because it was cooked with sincerity, served with warmth, and shared with hearts free of judgment. After dinner, as they prepared to leave, Simone turned to me and said, "You were right. Real wealth isn't what we show. It's what we feel." I touched her hand gently. "Remember that always, my dear. Because when you live with peace, the world can't shake you." They left soon after, but the warmth lingered in the air. I looked around my small apartment once again. The same furniture, the same faded curtains, the same ticking clock. And yet everything felt richer, brighter, more alive. I had no gold on my wrists, no diamonds on my neck, no luxury cars in the driveway. But I had something far greater: truth, peace, and love that asked for nothing in return. I turned off the lights, letting the soft glow from the city outside fill the room, and whispered to myself, I never needed to pretend, because in my simplicity, I found everything I was looking for. And as I closed my eyes, I knew with absolute certainty, I was finally free. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet peace in my home began to feel like sunlight, soft, steady, and warm. I started noticing the little joys again. The sound of morning birds, the aroma of tea, the laughter of children in the street below. It was as if life had slowed down. Not because it lost meaning, but because I finally understood it. One afternoon, while watering the small plants on my balcony, I saw Simone walking toward the gate, carrying a basket of fruits. She waved with a smile, and for a moment, I felt my heart swell with something beautiful. Not pride, not satisfaction, but gratitude. She greeted me softly. I thought you might like these. They're from the market. We sat together, cutting mangoes and talking about simple things, recipes, the weather, her new project. There was no awkwardness anymore. Just comfort, like two women who had learned to see each other beyond fear and judgment. At one point she said quietly, "You know, I used to think power came from money, but now I see it's in grace. The way you carry yourself, even when life breaks you, that's real strength." I looked at her, eyes gentle. My dear, strength isn't about never falling. It's about rising again without bitterness. She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. Just then Marcus arrived, laughing as he carried a small bag of groceries. "I see you two are already plotting dinner again." We laughed together, and for the first time in years it truly felt like home. Not a house built by ambition or guarded by pride, but a space where hearts could breathe freely. As evening fell, we lit a candle on the dining table, not for ceremony but for light. The warm glow reflected in our eyes, soft and real. After dinner, when they left, I stood by the window once more, watching the city lights flicker like 1,000 tiny stories. I thought about my journey, the loneliness, the pain, the misunderstandings, and how all of it had quietly shaped me into someone unshakable. People chase status, but peace is the real luxury. People build empires, but kindness is the only legacy that lasts. I opened my diary again, the final page still blank, waiting. I wrote slowly, letting every word come from the deepest corner of my heart. Life gave me storms, but it also gave me shelter. It took away my comfort, but taught me contentment. It broke my illusions, but handed me truth. I have learned that silence can be wealth, forgiveness can be strength, and dignity. Dignity is the most beautiful armor of all. I closed the diary and held it close to my chest. Outside, the moon hung bright and full, serene, eternal. It reminded me that everything changes, yet the light always returns. Tomorrow would come like it always does. But this time, I would greet it not as a woman who had lost everything, but as one who had found herself. And somewhere deep inside, I knew my husband would have been proud. I whispered into the night, "Thank you, life, for breaking me, so I could rebuild myself with grace." Then I turned off the lights, feeling a peace that no wealth, no title, no power could ever buy. I wasn't rich, I wasn't powerful, but I was free, and that was everything.